I'm back with another video. This is going to be another IMR Scary Tales video. This is called Creepy Stalker and Scary Phone Calls. So 3 horror stories in a minute. Again, it just shows the first 2 of the names. They can't fit the whole thing. So Creepy Stalker. I mean, stalker stories are always pretty entertaining and interesting. So I'm really curious to see that one. And then the phone call. That's going to be a new one too. And then the last one, I guess, is like a surprise. Without further ado, guys, let's go. Creepy stalker in my neighborhood. Oh,
this all started about a year ago.
Close your curtains.
I, a 23-year-old female, live on the 2nd floor of an apartment complex and have lived here my entire life.
Okay.
The building is mostly comprised of families with young children and married couples. A lot of the families have lived here as long as my family has, so everyone knows each other pretty well. There is only one apartment unit that isn't occupied by a family, but rather by a pair of brothers who keep to themselves. One day, one of their sons, around my age, appeared out of the blue.
Sus.
He was strange off the bat. He would always wear a sweatshirt with the hood up and would run through the apartment complex to get to his apartment.
And he looks sus as hell.
I'm not sure what his face looks like because he always had the hood over his face. He lived on the 1st floor, on the back side of the complex, and would often go into his place by jumping through the window.
What?
He basically did everything in his power to avoid any interaction. I didn't mind him because I never saw him due to my busy schedule. However, one day, he started sitting on the top of the staircase that leads to my apartment. It's so strange because his apartment unit was on the other side of the complex and on the 1st floor. I brushed it off at first, but it started happening every day. When I would come home from school, he was there. When my boyfriend at the time would drop me off at night, typically at around 10:30 to 11, he would be there.
Sus.
Sometimes, when I would leave and come back hours later, he would still be in the exact same spot as if he didn't move through the 5+ hours I was gone.
Wait, what is he doing?
At this point, I told my parents and my boyfriend about it, and they became very vigilant. My boyfriend would park his car and walk me to my door every night to drop me off. Once he saw my boyfriend, he stopped sitting on the staircase, and I thought it was over, but it wasn't. He started waiting for me at the bus stop. The bus I take home from school stops right across from the street from my home, so it's a short walk.
Okay.
One day when I was getting off, I saw him waiting at the bus stop. Once he saw me get off, he followed me into the complex and sat on the staircase. He also started following me when I would walk my dog. At this point, my parents were upset. My dog started letting the neighbors know he was following me around. My neighbors started making sure he wasn't bothering me. If I was alone, they would start a conversation with me until I got into my door. One day, I got a friend request on Facebook from this guy. Mind you, he had never spoken a word to me, so how did he know my name, let alone find me on Facebook?
True.
My mom tried talking to his father, but they would never answer the door when my mom knocked on their door.
Sus.
So I'm thinking, it can't possibly get any worse, right?
Oh.
He seemed harmless, so I wasn't too worried.
Seemed harmless.
I was wrong. One day when I returned from my boyfriend's house, my mom told me she had something to tell me, but she didn't want me to get spooked. She proceeded to tell me that when she was walking towards the kitchen to get a glass of water, she saw something in the tree move. Our kitchen has a huge window that takes up most of the wall. In front of the window, there's a huge tree. If someone were to climb the tree, you could see into our apartment. Well, guess what? When my mom took a closer look, she realized my neighbor was sitting in the tree, looking straight into the apartment. My mom called my dad over, and when my neighbor saw my dad, he jumped off the tree. At that moment, I felt my peace stolen from me. We filed a police report, but when the police went looking for him, he was gone. It turned out that there were snack wrappers and a blanket hidden in between the leaves of the tree.
What?
The police think that wasn't the first time he was up in that tree.
Clearly not.
I couldn't help but wonder how many times he saw me walking around, and I had no idea.
Right? That's so scary, oh my god.
It's been about 6 months, and I haven't seen him since. His father still lives in the complex, but there's been no sight of him. The police haven't been able to find him, so I have no idea what happened to him, but I just hope we never meet again.
Right? Like, my neighbor has a tree and I'm kind of looking at it like, is there anyone in there? Is she watching me?
When I was 22, I moved 1,000 miles away from my Midwest home to the beautiful foothills of Tennessee.
Okay.
I had a new job, new car, and a nice apartment, but didn't know a soul outside of work. If my phone rang, I expected to hear a faraway family member or my long-distance boyfriend, who was still in college.
Okay.
This was a landline, no cell phones yet. Despite being very alone, I was managing well with the excitement of all the new things in my life. I had only lived there about 2 weeks when the unwanted calls started. The first call, a man's friendly voice asked what I was doing.
Oh, God.
I couldn't place him and thought maybe it was one of my cousins or uncles. I have a huge extended family. I ask him his name.
Who are you?
He laughs a little, and his tone gets dark, a bit angry, and he says, "You know exactly who this is, darling."
Oh my God.
I pause, deciding if this guy simply called the wrong number or is a creep. I choose the former, laugh, and politely tell him he has the wrong number. He then recites my brand new, unlisted, unpublished phone number and my name. What the fuck, I thought. An intense chill races through me.
Oh my
I've
God.
only given my new number to my parents, sister, boyfriend, apartment manager, and employer.
Sus.
I'm new to the city, in this lovely southern state. He does not like it that I tell him he called the wrong number, and starts yelling at me, then tells me in a much calmer voice the many vulgar things he's going to do to me. I hang up and brush it off.
Brush it
He
off?
calls again around 1 a.m. I tell him to screw himself and hang up.
Oh shit,
He
okay.
keeps calling, so I unplug the phone and return to sleep. However, as days go by, the calls continue and escalate. He starts mentioning personal things about me. Said he liked the white quilt on my bed.
Oh
Knew what
God.
was in my fridge. That he's allergic to cats. I had one. And then asked me if I was in love with Mary.
Who's
As I
Mary?
listened to his words, I was standing in my kitchen looking at the calendar taped to the fridge. It had Mary written in pink on the 17th with a heart around it, because Mary is my sister and the 17th is her birthday.
Oh my God,
I
sus.
started shaking and crying, because suddenly I realized this creep has been in my apartment. I was alone, with no
Yeah.
friends or family to run to for the
Alone.
night.
You're not alone.
It was me versus a creepy mystery man.
Call the cops now.
I didn't sleep much that night.
Call the cops.
Early the next morning, I talked to the apartment complex manager before heading to work, telling her what had happened and that I want the locks changed that day. She gets a weird look on her face, and after a long pause, says she knows who's been in my apartment and that it won't happen again.
What?
What? I thought to myself. It turns out she had a creepy, rapey maintenance guy who noticed a young woman moving into an apartment alone and that I was his new pet. She had the locks changed immediately and promised that she would personally keep the other key.
Mm-hmm.
Although the call stopped, I was paranoid for a year as I came and went from my apartment because I never even knew what this guy looked like.
Right?
I moved out the moment my lease was up.
Good.
Only after thinking about it years later did I realize that her weird expression likely meant that it had happened before. Plus, she didn't even fire him. I regret not calling the cops.
Stupid.
I
You
was
should have
young.
called the cops.
And naive.
Like, what the hell, man? Go away. Stop it. Stop it. Okay, what's the last story? Lakeside Camp. Of course it's a camp
This
story.
happened to
Of course.
myself and a friend of mine. We're both 23-year-old males. We decided to go on a 2-night backpacking camping trip to the Adirondack Mountains of New York.
Bad idea.
We are both very comfortable with nature and spend a lot of time outside hunting, camping, and fishing. We hiked about 5 miles to get to a small lake so we could set up camp on the beach. We didn't really expect to run into anyone else. Our first night there, as we were sitting around the fire, we saw a flashlight moving on the other side of the lake around 10:30. This was fairly unusual. However, we did not think much of it. But as time went on, this flashlight kept moving around the lake, getting closer to our campsite. We kept discussing who could possibly be wandering around the woods in the middle of the night. We did not want to deal with any unwelcomed guests. Once it was clear that the person, or people, were heading for our campsite,
I see him.
we moved off into the nearby woods to see who wandered up. I took a small axe with me, and my friend had a .22 gun.
Oh, okay.
Now, we weren't expecting any trouble, and we certainly didn't want to make any, but we figured we might as well cover our bases. Now, the moment of truth. The flashlight comes near the light of our fire, and it's one man. He has a beard and was probably in his mid-40s. The scary part was that he was carrying what turned out to be a pump-action shotgun. He walked around our campsite a few times, and then proceeded to enter our tent. After rummaging around for about a minute, he came out and started yelling,
"I know you're out there. Why don't you come and say hello?"
My friend and I remained motionless under a hemlock tree about 50 yards away. That's when the man proceeded to fire his shotgun into the woods, not too far from where we were. He also swung his flashlight around several times. After what felt like hours, he grabbed my friend's backpack and a few articles of clothing that we had drying near the fire and threw them in to burn. My friend had the .22 gun trained at the man. He asked me if he should shoot. I told him absolutely not, unless he spots us and starts pointing the gun in our direction. Thankfully, the man moved off after a while. We waited until his flashlight was on the other side of the lake. Then we ran out and grabbed everything we could fit in my pack and took off. It was now 2 or 3 a.m. We ran out the trail with our flashlights and made it back to my car as the sun was coming up. We immediately went to the police department and reported it, where we also spoke with some forest rangers, and that was it. I still haven't heard anything back from the police, and this experience creeped the hell out of both of us.
I mean, I would understand. Like, Jesus, it's freaking terrifying. But this is why I don't do camping. I tell everyone not to go. I tell everyone not to go camping. My friend likes camping. My one sister likes camping, and I'm like, stop it. Like, I guess a lot of the time it's okay and safe, but like, you know what I mean? Anything can happen. Like, they should have left like right away. Like right when they saw like coming closer, they should have just packed up and left already. Like, I would never be in this situation anyway, because like, I don't do camping, and I never will, and this is why. But that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you are new. If you have any suggestions, let me know, and I'll do them within a week or so. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and peace out.